My husband wakes me up multiple times every single night, not by accident, not because of emergencies. He turns on the bright overhead light like I'm not even there, lets his phone ring while I'm wide awake beside him, and then tells me I'm the problem for reacting. I'm 40. I have a young child. Sleep isn't a luxury for me, it's survival. I go to bed early, around 9:30. Not because I'm boring, not because I'm controlling. Because I have a young child, because my body needs rest, because I'm a light sleeper and always have been. My husband knows this. He chooses to go to bed later. That part doesn't bother me. What bothers me is how he comes to bed. Lately, every single night, he flips on the overhead light. Not a lamp, not his phone flashlight. The full ceiling light, bright, blinding. Like I'm not even in the bed. I jolt awake instantly, heart racing, eyes burning. He says he needs it to get ready for sleep. I asked him once calmly, "Can you just use your phone light like you used to?" He sighed. "I don't want to feel like I have to tiptoe around my own bedroom." Tiptoe. That word stuck with me. Because I wasn't asking him to tiptoe. I was asking him to care. Once the light goes on, I'm fully awake. Not half awake. Not drifting. Wide awake. My mind starts racing. Tomorrow's schedule. My child waking early. The exhaustion already building. And then there's his phone. He refuses to put it on Do Not Disturb. Flat refusal. It goes off once. Sometimes twice. Sometimes more. It never wakes him. It always wakes me. I've suggested compromises. Allow emergency contacts. Whitelist certain numbers. He shuts it down instantly. "You're trying to control me," he says. Control? But lying there in the dark, exhausted, heart pounding at 2 a.m., it doesn't feel like control. It feels like being invisible. And the worst part? This isn't new. I've always been a light sleeper. Sleep has always been an issue between us. Which makes me wonder, if he's known this for years, why does it suddenly feel like he's stopped caring? The night I finally snapped and yelled at him wasn't the worst moment. What he said after was. The night I finally snapped wasn't dramatic. There was no big fight. No slammed doors. It was 1:47 a.m. The overhead light clicked on like a shock to my system. My eyes burned open. My heart jumped. And before I could stop myself, I said, loud, sharp, raw, "Why do you keep doing this?" He froze at the edge of the bed. "What?" he asked, irritated. "I just got here." "You turned the light on," I said. "Again. You know it wakes me up." He exhaled hard like I'd insulted him. "I'm not doing anything wrong," he said. "I'm just living my life. Living his life." As if I wasn't lying right next to him. I told him I was exhausted, that I hadn't slept through the night in weeks, that every time he did this, it took me an hour, or more, to fall back asleep. He shook his head. "You're too sensitive," he said. "You've always been like this. Always. Like that made it my fault." I reminded him about my job, about our child waking up early, about how much sleep affects my health. He rolled onto his side and said something that made my stomach drop. "I shouldn't have to rearrange my entire life because you're a light sleeper." Rearrange his entire life. I wasn't asking for his life. I was asking for the light to stay off. The phone buzzed on his nightstand. Loud, sharp. I flinched. He didn't even move. "That's exactly what I'm talking about," I said quietly. "Can you please put it on Do Not Disturb?" "No," he said immediately. No explanation. No discussion. Just no. At that moment, I realized something painful. He wasn't unaware. He wasn't forgetful. He knew exactly what was happening. And he had decided my sleep mattered less than his comfort. I lay there, staring at the ceiling in the dark after the light finally went off, counting the hours until morning, wondering when too sensitive became an excuse for not caring at all. The next morning, I tried to talk to him calmly. And that's when he accused me of something that changed how I saw our marriage. Morning came too fast. My body felt heavy, like I hadn't slept at all, because I hadn't. I waited until after breakfast, after our child was distracted, after my voice stopped shaking. "I need to talk about last night," I said carefully. He didn't look up from his phone. "What about it?" "I can't keep waking up like this," I said. "It's affecting my health. I'm exhausted all the time." That's when he finally looked at me and laughed. Not a big laugh, a short, dismissive one. "You're really still on this?" "Yes," I said. "Because it keeps happening." He leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and said the word that hit harder than I expected. "You're trying to control me." I blinked. "What?" "You want to control when I sleep? How I use my phone? What I do in my own bedroom? Our bedroom." "I'm asking for basic consideration," I said. "Turning off a light. Silencing a phone." He shook his head. "This is exactly what you do," he said. "You make everything about you. Everything." I felt something twist in my chest. I started listing compromises. A lamp instead of the overhead light. Do not disturb with emergency contacts allowed. Even separate blankets, anything. He cut me off. "I shouldn't have to tiptoe around my own house," he said again. That word. Tiptoe. As if my need for sleep was an inconvenience. Then he said something I couldn't shake. If it's really that bad, maybe you should figure out how to sleep better. Not we. Me. I realized I was the only one trying to solve this. The conversation ended the same way it always did, with me feeling dramatic, needy, unreasonable. That night I went to bed early again, and when I heard his footsteps hours later, my body tensed automatically. Waiting, bracing, because I knew exactly what was coming. But that night, something different happened, and it made me wonder if this was really about sleep at all. That night, I didn't fall asleep right away. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, waiting for him to come to bed. My body already felt tense, like it was preparing for impact. The door opened. The light didn't turn on. At first, I felt relief wash over me. Maybe he heard me. Maybe he actually cares. He moved quietly. Too quietly. Then his phone buzzed. Once. Twice. Loud. I felt my jaw clench. He didn't silence it. Didn't even reach for it. And then, almost casually, the overhead light flipped on. Bright. Sudden. I gasped out loud. He stood there looking at me, eyes adjusting to the light. What? He said. I can't see. The way he said it. It wasn't defensive. It was flat. Intentional. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about convenience. It wasn't about habit. It was a pattern. Every time I asked for sleep, he pushed back harder. Every time I set a boundary, he crossed it, slowly, deliberately. I remembered other things. How he'd play videos on his phone late at night after I asked him to stop. How he'd start conversations when I was half asleep and then accuse me of ignoring him. How he'd sigh loudly when I wore earplugs, like I was insulting him. Sleep wasn't the problem. Control was. I turned onto my side, heart pounding, pretending to sleep. The light stayed on longer than usual, and in that moment, I realized something that scared me more than exhaustion. He wanted me awake. The next day, I decided to do something small, but it exposed a much bigger truth about our marriage. The next night, I didn't say anything. No reminders. No requests. No arguments. I just prepared. I went to bed at 9:30 like always, but this time, I put in soft silicone earplugs. I pulled a sleep mask over my eyes. Nothing dramatic. Nothing confrontational. Just quiet protection. When he came to bed, I felt the familiar shift in the mattress. Then, the overhead light clicked on. Even through the mask, I could see it. A harsh glow bleeding through the fabric. My heart started racing. The phone buzzed. Once. Twice. Louder than before. I stayed still. I didn't react. That's when I heard him sigh. Loudly. Exaggerated. He stood there longer than necessary, moving around, opening drawers, clearing his throat. Waiting. For me to say something. I didn't. After a full minute, he muttered, "Unbelievable," and finally turned the light off. I lay there wide awake, realizing what had just happened. The noise wasn't accidental. The light wasn't necessary. It was a test. And when I didn't respond the way he expected, he was annoyed. The next morning, he brought it up first. "You're wearing a mask now?" he said. "Seriously?" I nodded. "I'm trying to sleep." He smirked. "Guess you'll do anything except admit you're the problem." That's when I felt it. Not anger. Clarity. This wasn't about sleep compatibility. It was about power. And I was done letting him have it at night. So I made a decision that shocked him and forced him to show his true colors. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before. I set up the guest room. Clean sheets. Extra pillows. A small lamp with a soft, warm glow. Nothing dramatic. Just peaceful. When he got home and saw it, he frowned. "What's this?" he asked. "I'm sleeping in here tonight," I said calmly. He laughed. Actually laughed. "You're really going to be this petty?" "This isn't petty," I said. "I need sleep." He crossed his arms, leaning against the doorway. "So instead of fixing your problem, you're punishing me?" There it was again. My need, punishment to him. "I'm not punishing anyone," I said. "I'm taking care of myself." His face hardened. "That's ridiculous," he said. "Married people don't sleep in separate rooms." "Plenty do, but I didn't say that. I just repeated, 'I need sleep.'" That's when his tone shifted. Lower, sharper. "So what? You're just going to abandon our bed now?" Abandon. Like I was doing something cruel. He walked away without another word. That night I slept. Not perfectly, but better than I had in weeks. No bright light. No buzzing phone. Just quiet. In the morning, he barely spoke to me. Wouldn't look at me. The silence felt heavy and intentional. By the third night, it was clear. This wasn't a compromise to him. It was a threat. Then he did something I never expected, and it made me realize sleep was only the beginning. On the fourth night, I woke up anyway. Not from a light. Not from a phone. From footsteps. Heavy ones, right outside the guest room door. I held my breath. The doorknob turned. Slowly. The door creaked open just an inch. Moonlight spilled across the floor. "What are you doing?" I whispered. He stood there silhouetted in the doorway. "Just checking on you," he said. My stomach dropped. "I'm sleeping," I said. "Please go back to bed." He didn't move. "You know, he said quietly. This whole separate room thing is really unhealthy. At 2 in the morning, while I was half asleep, I sat up, heart pounding. You woke me up to say that? He shrugged. You were already awake. I wasn't. He lingered another moment, then finally left. But sleep didn't come back. The next day, he acted normal. Too normal. Joking with our child. Chatting about dinner. Like the night before never happened. That's when I started paying attention to other things. How he'd comment on how much I slept. How he'd joke about me being fragile. How he'd tell people I was high maintenance. Always smiling. Always subtle. That night, I locked the guest room door. When I heard him try the handle, my chest tightened. It rattled once, then stopped. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, realizing something terrifying. He didn't just want the bed back. He wanted control back. The next morning, he crossed a line. And I finally understood what I was dealing with. The next morning, I found out he'd been talking about me. Not to friends. Not privately. To his family. I didn't know that yet. All I knew was my phone lighting up with messages before I'd even had coffee. His sister. Are you okay? He says you're refusing to sleep with him. His mother. Marriage takes compromise. Running away isn't the answer. Running away. I felt sick. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. I needed someone to talk to, he said calmly. About my sleep. About my body. About something deeply personal. He had framed it perfectly. That I was withholding intimacy. That I was overreacting. That I was creating distance. Not a word about the lights. Not a word about the phone. I told him that involving his family crossed a line. He tilted his head and said, I thought you liked honesty. That's when it clicked. He wasn't trying to fix anything. He was recruiting witnesses, building a narrative where he was the patient husband, and I was the difficult wife. That afternoon, I sat in my car and cried. Not because I was tired, because I finally saw the pattern clearly. This wasn't a sleep issue. This was emotional manipulation, and I was done pretending it wasn't. So I reached out to someone I hadn't talked to in a long time, and what they told me changed everything. I called my sister first. I hadn't wanted to involve her. I didn't want to sound dramatic, but as soon as I started talking, the words poured out. The lights. The phone. The guest room. The door handle at night. His family's messages. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that made my chest tighten. This isn't about sleep. I swallowed. I know. No, she said gently. I mean, this is control. I sat there gripping the steering wheel. She told me about emotional abuse. About sleep deprivation as a tactic. About how small things add up. I didn't want to believe it. But once she said it, I couldn't unsee it. The dismissiveness. The gaslighting. The way he reframed every request as an attack. That night, I watched him differently. When he joked about me being dramatic. When he sighed loudly if I went to bed early. When he rolled his eyes if I mentioned being tired. It wasn't accidental. It was systematic. I realized I'd been shrinking myself for years, lowering my needs, apologizing for existing, and I was exhausted, in every possible way. I didn't sleep much that night. But for the first time, I wasn't confused. I was awake. The next day, I made a decision that scared me more than losing sleep ever had. The next morning, I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't defend myself. I packed a bag. Not everything, just enough. Clothes. Medications. My charger. Our child's favorite stuffed animal. My hands were steady in a way that surprised me. When he saw the bag, he laughed like this was another phase. You're being dramatic again, he said. You'll cool off. I looked at him and felt nothing. No, I said quietly. I won't. That's when his tone changed. You're really going to blow up our family over sleep? Over sleep. I didn't answer. Because it was never just sleep. It was respect. It was safety. It was the slow erosion of my well-being while I was told it was my fault. I stayed with my sister that night. I slept deeply. For the first time in years, I woke up without dread. Later, when I spoke to a therapist, she said something that sealed it for me. People who love you don't punish you for having needs. We're separated now. He still tells people I overreacted. That I chose sleep over marriage. I let him, because I chose something far more important. My health. My clarity. My child seeing what self-respect looks like. And now, when I turn off the light at night, the darkness feels peaceful. Not lonely.